Welcome to Manufacturing Matters, a podcast sponsored by Simsbury Bank. Welcome to this episode of Simsbury Bank's Manufacturing Matters. My name is Martin Geitz. I'm President and CEO of Simsbury Bank, and I'm delighted to be here today at Cnc Software in Tolland, Connecticut, to speak with Megan Summers West, who is the CEO of Cnc Software, and I'm delighted to be joined also by Mark Summers, who is a co-founder of Cnc Software. And we're here to talk about their strategic direction and how they've built a really incredible company here in Connecticut. You may wonder why we are in a series of podcasts and videos focused on manufacturing. What are we doing at a software company? Well, you're going to learn that here. As a software that drives many of the CNC machines around the country is developed right here by this company, which is terrific. So welcome. I'm very delighted to be here with you, and thank you very much for participating with us today. So Megan, maybe we could start off and you could actually talk a bit about what the company does, Cnc Software. Also, you go under the name Mastercam, I understand, and how you go about your business.
Sure. So first, thank you for having us. It's nice to have you here today. So Cnc Software is a 36-year-old company. We were founded in 1983, and we are located here in Tolland, Connecticut. Our flagship product is called Mastercam. And Mastercam is a CAD/CAM software that drives CNC machine tools. And essentially, we've been doing the same thing from the very beginning. 36 years ago, we developed tool paths, and that's what we're doing today. We are a global company, so we are in over 80 countries around the world. We have resellers that sell the product and supply the manufacturing industry.
Incredible. And Mark, maybe you could share with us and our listening audience how you got the company going. How did this come together?
Well, it was a long time ago, but I remember most of it. It was 1983, as Megan mentioned, and I had always wanted to start a business. I wasn't quite sure what type, but I ended up with the opportunity kind of staring me in the face. And the opportunity was helping, I worked for a machine tool company, and I had a lot of contacts with customers that had purchased their first CNC machine tool, which was kind of an interesting time back in the early 80s. They were not as prevalent as they are today. Everybody was buying their first one, and so I got to witness a lot of these situations. But challenges came along with the first machine tools. It's like, great, this does a lot of cool stuff, but how do I program it? So all of these customers had the same need, which was they needed a fair amount of math skills and to program their machine tools. And so I talked 3 roommates into helping me purchase a computer, and we started to develop a tool to do this programming. And eventually I showed this software program that didn't do a whole lot at the time to a customer, and he said, cool, I like it, I think I want to buy a copy. And I said, great, I don't know what to charge, but I'll come up with a number. And so that was kind of the start of it, and luckily I worked for a company that was very supportive of the idea of me starting a business while I was working for them, and that was kind of a key step. And so that was the start, and we just slowly grew it in New England and eventually nationwide and worldwide.
It's amazing. Well, and we're sitting in a room here that is, I guess, a testing laboratory for you to, and there are, I guess, 5 or 6 different manufacturers of CNC machines are represented here. Right. So clearly your software that you develop today can be used by a variety of manufacturers. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are hundreds of machine tool manufacturers. I mean, certainly there are kind of the cream of the crop, and we have several of those represented here. But yeah, I mean, anything that drives a tool, you know, a mill machine, lathe, router, wire, Swiss machine tools, can all use Mastercam to drive their machine tools.
It's amazing. And so does that require you to work closely with the manufacturers of the machines in order to accommodate whatever their unique design is in processes.
It does, really. It's a good partnership. It's an important partnership we have. They provide us with machines. We fine tune how they're programmed and how they're run. So we try to make them look as good as possible. And at the same time, if we didn't have machines to drive, we wouldn't be able to demonstrate our software. So it's a key partnership that we like to keep going for forever. So.
That's great. That's great. So speaking of forever, to have a great company over the long run, you need to have a strategic focus. And I believe the word focus is central to your strategic plan and your strategic direction. And I wonder if, Megan, you might talk a little bit about your strategic focus and what that means to CNC Software.
Sure. So as I mentioned, and my dad likes to say this all the time, is that we've been doing the same thing for the last 36 years, and that's creating toolpaths that drive CNC machine tools. And we're in an interesting time in the manufacturing industry where a lot of our competitors are being acquired by larger companies. And I think what ends up happening is kind of a decentralization. And what is important to understand about CAM is that it's incredibly complex. It's not a commodity. It's not a product that a customer purchases and then just walks away. Mm-hmm. Really what our customers are purchasing is the relationship with us, because as technology gets more complex and it gets harder and harder to run these machine tools, and the technology is just amazing. It takes a lot of support, a lot of training to be able to use Mastercam and to use it as effectively as possible. And so the fact that we focus simply on CAM means mm-hmm. that we do it the best. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the competition, they're focusing on CAD, they're focusing on CAM, metrology, robotics. There's a lot of that going on. And our strategy has been to simply focus on what we do and partner with people that do what they do best. Mm-hmm. So we've got a lot of partners out there that are in the manufacturing industry, and they complement what we do. Mm-hmm. But that strategy has worked very well for us.
And that's what you mean by focusing on CAM.
Yes.
That's your piece. Yeah, that's great. So you are a family-owned business. Second generation is now running the business. And does that create any kind of, as you continue to implement your strategy, does being a family-owned business, how does that help you, or how does that create a challenge for you when you're competing with others in this industry?
Interesting question. So I guess one of the things is that being a family-owned business, there hasn't been a lot of change, and by change I mean change for the sake of change. Mm-hmm. It was probably the least amount of disruption possible in terms of a transition. So when the second generation took over, I was able to continue working through the same strategy that we've been using for the last 35 years. Certainly, I've made adjustments and improvements where possible. Mm-hmm. But in terms of our reseller channel, they continued doing business as they had been, and I think that was helpful. Same thing for our customers. They really didn't see a big change, and that's good when you're mm-hmm. in the CAM industry. You want things to be a good flow. Yep. So that's been fantastic. And then I think the other part of it is that as a family business, our focus is not on the bottom line necessarily. It's mm-hmm. not, are we making our shareholders happy? It's, are we making our customers happy? And that allows us to make decisions that are best for our customers and not worrying about external forces. Mm-hmm. So I think that's been a huge help. Also
allows you to think more long term.
Absolutely.
You're not worried about somebody looking at your quarterly results and how does that affect the stock price? So you're able to think more long term.
Absolutely, and because there's going to be ups and downs, especially in the
sure.
manufacturing industry. There are so many variables that affect that. All the stuff that's going on politically, there's a lot of effect on manufacturing. But we're able to kind of weather the storms a lot more stable.
Yep, that's terrific. So Mark, we had a smooth transition in leadership, it sounds like, which is terrific for customers, probably terrific for employees as well. What's your perspective now that you are, sort of a step removed from the day-to-day? What's your perspective on the strategic direction of the company and the focus on, being really strong in CAM? How do you feel about the direction of the company?
Well, it's a good question.
Careful.
Like Megan said, it's, I feel lucky that I had somebody to transition the business to. And if I didn't, it would have probably meant a sale or some sort of merger or something like that. But this transition represents the least amount of change, but in some ways the most amount, because she's taken the ball and she's running with it. And I have to be careful about keeping out of her way. I like to influence a little bit, but at a distance.
Sure.
And so the direction is really to continue doing what we've always done, but do it in a stronger fashion. And she's putting more energy into it. So it's kind of got like a resurgence, so to speak. For example, I think we hired 5 people this week.
Yep.
Wow.
And so the number of people has grown dramatically. Sales have grown. Number of partners we have has grown as well.
Yep.
And I think our resellers, who are our partners and our customers, sense this, and it's created a tighter, stronger company.
Yep.
So it's all positive.
That's great. You both mentioned partnerships and partners. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how that is so important to your strategy, Megan?
Sure. Well, as I said, so we are a small family business, and the way that we're able to compete with these larger, multinational corporations is by having strong partners, so that, essentially our exposure is much bigger than just being a 200 person here in Tallinn, Connecticut. If you add up the number of resellers, sub-dealers, OEM partners, referral dealers, we've got about 2,000 people representing Mastercam around the globe. So that, that shows you how important partners are to us. And the fact that we have local representation around the globe, I think, has been a really important piece of our strategy. So whether you're in Thailand or Japan or Texas or California, you have somebody that understands the way that you're doing business, and understands any kind of cultural issues that you may be having or political issues that you may be having. And I think that's been a really big help. Adding to that, partners that are in the industry that aren't necessarily in the CAM industry, but in the manufacturing industry, the fact that they are representing Mastercam, or that they're acknowledging that Mastercam is a good product to use, that's word of mouth, and that's incredibly strong, and that's done a lot to really strengthen our brand.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. In talking about partnerships and talking about how you focus your strategy, one of the things that has got to be important to you also is the culture of the company. Just in walking around here today and seeing some of your folks and seeing the campus here, it really appears to be a very employee-friendly company, which leads to a very customer-friendly company. But I wonder if you could talk about the importance of culture. Do you think about culture a lot? Is that an important part of the drivers for you as a company, Megan?
Absolutely. I think that's the beginning of it, because I always say that what drives me is not necessarily, again, the bottom line. Of course, we have to be a profitable company to be sustainable. That's a given. But how I define success is whether or not people walk in the door and they're happy. Because if you have happy employees, they're going to be productive employees. Mm-hmm. And the same can be said about our resellers. If they're happy to be partners with us, then they're going to be more productive, and that flows right into the customer. If the customers are happy, they'll be loyal customers, and that means we end up having a profitable business. So, I think it really, you focus on the people, because, I think we're all here to make a living, of course, mm-hmm. but I think at the end of the day, you want to be part of something that you're proud to be part of.
Right.
And fortunately, we have a pretty amazing company that has made a very positive impact on the world. Some of our customers have done things like create burn masks for burn victims, or we've got companies that send their products into outer space, and we've got products that they're shaping the world. And so it's pretty exciting to be a part of that. But in terms of culture, we have been fortunate enough to have the flexibility to, make sure that our employees are happy. And it's, it's little things like having a beautiful campus to come to, or,
mm-hmm.
We have a garden outside that, we pick the vegetables and leave them at the front and people can kind of go grocery shopping on their way home.
Wow.
We've got a lot of groups of people that meet at lunchtime and go for a run or go for a bike ride. We've got yoga on Wednesdays. We have food trucks on Fridays. And those are some of the perks, I think, of the culture. But when you really get down to it, if you define what our culture is, it's collaborative. Mm-hmm. It's challenging but respectful. Mm-hmm. we push people to challenge each other and do it in a respectful manner. But I think that's how we get to the best possible solution. Focus on quality. That's as we talked earlier today, it's everything that you see in the building is quality, and that expectation goes down to the product.
Right.
So it's kind of a trickle down effect. But I think at the end of the day, we like to have fun. Most of our meetings there's some kind of laughter or some kind of story. It doesn't feel like work, and I think that's what makes it great.
Yeah. So Mark, as when you were starting this company with you and a handful of people, has culture always been part of how you saw this becoming a very successful company over time?
Yeah, I didn't really think about culture as much as I thought about the product, the details of the product, but it's definitely been an important part of the company. And an interesting part of the culture that's changed since Megan took over a few years ago is that we don't worry so much about finding local talent, mm-hmm. where with so much technology now and being able to dial in and web meetings and that sort of thing, Megan's focused on finding the best talent not only around the country but around the world, mm-hmm. and they can still collaborate just as well as they can if they came into the building every day. So it's, there's a lot more people, but in some way it doesn't feel like it because they're spread out a lot further. So that's kind of part of the culture that we've been able to create based on the technology that's available.
That's amazing. So how do you, with so many of your key people not necessarily coming here every day, but out around the world, how do you how does that affect your culture? How do you embrace them in your culture?
So we talk a lot about that because we want to make sure that as new people come on, and like you said, we had 5 new people start on Tuesday. We're up to I think 14 new people this year.
Wow.
And growing pretty rapidly. And so it is important to make sure that you're focusing on culture. There are a lot of different ways to do that. One of them is that we use the Scrum methodology. So all of our product teams meet daily. And I think that's part of it, is that constant connection. We've got tools like Skype for Business, Microsoft Office 365. There are a lot of different ways that we're able to communicate. And our HR team and our admin services team is always coming up with different ways to keep people connected. For example, we are very proud to sponsor a all-female BattleBots team called Witch Doctor.
Wow.
Yes, and they are going to be on TV in a couple weeks, and so we are creating a group chat for the entire company. So everybody's going to do a viewing. We'll have a group chat that everybody can kind of talk about the episode as it's airing. But it's all online. It's all behind the computer, but there's all sorts of different ways to keep them connected. We do quarterly meetings, and we broadcast that out to everybody, so that they can all participate and stay connected. And in fact, I think it was the last one, we handed out mugs. Actually, these are the mugs with our mission on it. Mm-hmm. And our admin team is absolutely fantastic. They had already shipped out the mugs to all of our offsite employees, so that as soon as the meeting ended, there were some employees that within minutes they got them delivered to their doorstep.
Oh, that's great.
It's just being aware of it and being conscious of it. I did want to mention, you asked Dad about how he thought about culture, and I think part of it and why it's so special is that it was never forced. Mm-hmm. I think the culture takes on the personality of your founder, and he's kind of a fun guy. I don't say that to him all the time. But I think it was just very genuine.
Sure.
It was never forced. It just kind of, it developed with him and his 2 brothers. They are both part of the history of the company, and I think that was a big piece of it. And as a family, we have a lot of fun together, and we're always challenging each other and staying very connected. So I think that's a big piece of why it's ended up the way it has.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Actually, you mentioned, in talking about attracting quality people and the people with the skills that you need to be successful. Simsbury Bank has many manufacturing company customers who use the machines that are in this room, and I assume are using your software in those machines. And one of the common themes that I hear from our manufacturing company customers is the challenge with workforce, with getting folks here in Connecticut who are able to come and work on the factory floor or be the engineers to, design the products and so forth. And so I know there's a lot of work going on in our state community college system, and UConn has got a wonderful engineering program. But I'm interested in the software world. How would you describe the availability of talent in Connecticut? Are there things that we ought to be doing as a state to create and then well-developed folks who would then choose to stay here and work in Connecticut? Any thoughts on that? You've got a twinkle in your eye. I think you've got an opinion here, Mark.
Well, that's might be kind of a long-winded answer. Everybody's got their own opinion on the politics of the state and the business climate and what we could do to make business more attractive for people. And it's definitely concerning when we see big businesses or high wealth individuals leave the state.
Sure.
It hurts the tax base, and I think Connecticut is one of the few states where there is a little, I don't want to say an exodus, but more people leaving than coming in. So what could we do to make it better? I think keep listening to the business people and understand why they're leaving, and see if we can understand the repercussions about ideas to turn that around. How can we keep businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, we're doing pretty well here. We have no plans to go anywhere. We're rooted pretty solid.
Yep.
We have a lot of people around us and the building and all that. But some businesses are more mobile, and they can leave. But I think it deserves a study.
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep looking at it. Why are people leaving?
Yeah. How about attracting quality people here in Connecticut?
We've been very fortunate. I might be biased, but I think we've got the best of the best here.
Mm-hmm.
We've been incredibly lucky to find some really incredible employees. But I think part of that is that we do provide a good place to work.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's our social responsibility to Connecticut, is to provide a good place for
Right.
people that are in the state to be able to come work. But that being said, we don't limit ourselves. The technology has allowed us to be able to look outside of the state, so that's helped us to really find the cream of the crop as well.
Yep.
And we'll continue to do that.
That's great. Well, this has been fascinating. I'm wondering, are there other areas? What did we miss in our conversation? What else would you like to talk about as final thoughts here, final comments?
Well, just one final thought on the workforce development. We certainly do a lot to, make an effort to improve workforce development. We've got a sponsorship of Makerspace CT. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
It's a new business venture in Hartford.
Yep.
And I don't know if you know what a makerspace is, but it's a business that acquires different technology and machinery, welding, machining, woodworking, selling a lot of different technologies. And so if you have an interest in a certain subject or skill, you might enroll as a member. Mm-hmm. And take classes and get training and learn a new skill. Maybe start a small business. Wow. And so we have a connection with that. It just started up in Hartford.
What is your connection with that? Are you providing software? Are you?
Yeah. We provide software to help drive some of the machine tools there.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, the lack of skilled workers is certainly a concern to us because those are our customers.
Sure.
So if there's no pipeline, then who are we selling to 5 to 10 years from now?
Right.
So we do certain things like that. We're a sponsor of Workshop for Warriors, which is a training program for transitioning veterans that are going
great.
from military life to civilian life, and they learn how to use Mastercam, and
Yep.
I think there's 95% job placement at this point, which is
Wow.
fantastic.
It's amazing.
And then getting them started early. We've got Manufacturing Day coming up in October. Last year, I think we had 200 students come through the building and get an opportunity to see, what you can do in the manufacturing industry. So.
Right. That's great. Fantastic. And do you engage with UConn or the community colleges and the state universities as well?
We do, yeah. UConn has been a great partner of ours. They developed something called the Formula SAE car, and we do some work for them here. We create some of the parts for their car, and they always bring the car down and whip it around the parking lot, which is a lot of fun for our employees to see. And we've actually got a couple of interns that are working here for the summer that are from UConn, and several employees that have come right from UConn as well.
Great.
Yep.
That's
And
great.
the community college system has been fantastic in Connecticut. They're really doing a great job pushing advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, that's terrific. Any final thoughts, Mark, founder of the company? And
Really, I'm just happy that it's still going and that it's in good hands. I've got all the confidence in the world and the new leadership, and I think it's going to continue in the right direction for a long time.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mark West, founder of CNC Software, and thank you, Megan Summers West. Mark Summers, excuse me. Thank you, Mark Summers. Thank you, Mark Summers, founder of CNC Software, and thank you, Megan Summers West, for joining us on the Simsbury Bank Manufacturing Matters podcast and the video. And we look forward to our next episode down the road. Thank you all very much for joining us at today's Simsbury Bank Manufacturing Matters podcast and video. My name is Martin Geitz, President and CEO of Simsbury Bank. Thank you again for joining us.